Thank you. We good? Good morning and welcome to the New York City hybrid vote on the Committee on Finance. Please silence all electronic devices. Chair, we're ready to begin.
Thank you, Sergeant. Okay, good morning. Happy Sunday. Happy Pride. Welcome to today's Finance Committee meeting where we'll be adopting the FY25 budget. I'm Councilman Justin Brannan. I chair the Committee on Finance. I want to acknowledge my fellow committee members present this morning, joined by Council Members Farias, Juan, Brooks Powers, Hanks, Brewer, Ayala, Lewis, Stevens, Williams, Osei, Carr, oh my goodness, Hudson, Sanchez, and Moya on Zoom. And Powers in the cheap seats. Okay, today the Finance Committee will take the necessary actions for the City Council to adopt a $112.4 billion budget for FY25. To begin, I want to thank Speaker Adams for her fearless leadership throughout this entire budget process, which basically began the day after we passed the FY24 budget. Speaker's commitment to a budget that meets the needs of working people of the city and insisting we have the resources necessary to invest in our neighbors set the tone for all of us through negotiations. I want to thank the Speaker as well for maintaining standards of transparency and inclusivity for all members throughout this budget. We may take it for granted now, but that was certainly not always the norm around here. I want to thank the tireless work of the Council's Finance Division. Month after month of long hours preparing for hearings, fielding questions from members, and delivering regular briefings, presentations, and reports went into crafting this budget, and we deeply appreciate the dedication of all the financial analysts and economists who got us to this vote today. A very special thank you to the Finance Division's leadership team, Finance Director Richard Lee, Managing Director Jonathan Rosenberg, Deputy Directors Emra Adeb, Chima Obichair, Paul Simone, Isha Wright, Chief Economist and Assistant Director Delara Demnaku, Assistant Director Elizabeth Hoffman, Supervising Economist Paul Sturm, Andrew Wilbur, and William Shirkatang, and Unit Heads Aliyah Ali, Julia Haramis, Jimmy Reyes, Jack Story, and Florentine Cobore. A big thank you to the Finance Division's Chief Financial Officer and Deputy Chief of Staff, Tanisha Edwards, for her leadership. The budget successes we have achieved today is possible from the dedicated efforts of you and the staff. I want to make special notice of the Finance Administrative staff as well and the Legislative Documents Unit. They pull everything together through countless emails, updates, corrections, and last-minute asks up until the minute I walked in the door today. Every vote, every time they're here. I want to thank Vanessa Diaz-Lopez, Maria Pagan, Nicole Anderson, Jonathan Etrix, Ruthie Del Franco, Jillian Jeffries, Yvette Molina, Billy Martin, and Matthew DeStefano. The ever-present Sergeant at Arms, they keep things orderly and safe on either side of Broadway through our executive hearings, parade season, everything in between. Thank you, Carl, Raphael, and the entire team. Colossal thanks to my fearless co-pilot for the past 6 months through all the endless hearings and briefings, Committee Counsel, the mighty Mike Toomey. Last but not least, give it up for Mike Toomey, guys. Come on. If there's ever any bad news, I make Mike Toomey deliver it. Last but not least, a special shout out to my district office staff for holding down the fort during this crazy time. I don't think I've been to my district office in about 6 months. And to my friend and advisor, John Yedden, for dealing with my charming impatience. This budget, we love Yedden, okay. This budget represents the Council's focus on shared priorities and our certainty that the revenue was there to undo cuts to essential services for our city's safety and growth. We fought with passion and precision for a budget that delivers for the hardworking New Yorkers who make the city the capital of the world, not only by restoring attempted cuts, but by baselining funding to give services stability and reliability in the future. It's just an example of what this body was able to accomplish. We successfully restored the full $58.3 million for our library systems, $43 million of which is baselined into the future. We secured a full $53 million restoration and $13 million baseline to our cultural institutions, the heartbeat of our city. $11 million for the Fair Fares program to raise the eligibility level and expand this program to stop New Yorkers from having to choose between a MetroCard and a meal. The housing crisis is real and driving too many of our neighbors away. To fight this, the council secured $2 billion in this budget in additional capital funding over the next 2 years for construction of housing that New Yorkers can actually afford. On top of that, we secured nearly $615 million in funding for city FEPs, and $540 million of that will be baselined. The council focused on early childhood education in this budget, particularly the danger of expiring stimulus dollars to valued and relied upon programs. The budget includes $112 million to cover expiring federal stimulus money for 3K and pre-K, along with $40 million for about 5,000 extended day, extended year pre-K seats. We also achieved $74 million to restore school-based social workers, psychologists, and family workers endangered by the stimulus cliff, a full $70 million restoration for funding of community schools, and more. Our emphasis on baselining reflects the council's attention to the future, preventing future councils and administrations from negotiating over what should be bedrock funding while New Yorkers hang in the balance. As Speaker Adams said, we need to move away from a budget process centered on restorations and start spending our time on how we strengthen what New Yorkers need to thrive. Today, we'll also be voting on 5 legislative items, 4 pre-considered resolutions relating to interest rates on late payment of property taxes, and Introduction 962. Pursuant to both the Charter and the Administrative Code, every year, the New York City Banking Commission recommends to the City Council interest rates to charge for non-payment of property taxes. For FY25, the Banking Commission recommends the following rates. For properties with an assessed value of no more than $250,000, 9%. For properties with an assessed value of no more than $250,000 for which the owner has entered into an installment payment agreement with the Department of Finance for payment of delinquent property taxes, 6%. Properties with an assessed value of more than $250,000 but less than $450,000, 15%. Properties with an assessed value of more than $450,000, 18%. The committee is voting to adopt lower interest rates than the recommended by the Banking Commission, and we're voting as follows. For properties with an assessed value of no more than $250,000, 6%. Properties with an assessed value of no more than $250,000 for which the owner has entered into an installment payment agreement, 2.5%. Properties with an assessed value of more than $250,000 but less than $450,000, 9%, and properties with an assessed value of more than $450,000, 16%. Remember, these are interest rates related to late payment of property taxes. The resolutions we are voting on represent a 1% increase from the rates adopted last fiscal year, except for the rate for properties subject to a payment plan, which represents a 0.5% increase. The Finance Committee believes this small increase balances the need to maintain the effectiveness of interest charges to encourage timely payments of taxes without creating an overly burdensome charges on homeowners. Finally, Introduction 962, a local law sponsored by myself along with council members Nurse, Williams, Farias, and Hudson to make significant reforms to the city's process of collecting outstanding property taxes and charges authorized by the Department of Finance to conduct the sale of debt under a new set of comprehensive protections for homeowners and tenants that shifts the focus towards home preservation and resolving debt rather than squarely on tax collection by any means. So now let's turn to adopting this budget. Before we get to the vote, I'd like to discuss the specific items that we'll vote on today. All members received a budget packet from the committee council that contains all the budget-related legislation that must be voted on by the committee and again by the full council at the stated meeting later today. So I'm just going to list the items that are on our agenda today that will require a vote. 1, resolution approving the FY25 expense budget. 2, resolution approving the FY25 contract budget. 3, resolutions approving the FY25 capital budget, Reso A, Reso B. 4, a resolution approving an expense budget modification to close out FY24, and a resolution approving a revenue budget modification, which also closes out FY24. Number 6, a resolution approving the proposed FY25 Community Development Program, reallocation of the 50th year funds and proposed 51st year program. Number 7, 3 property tax resolutions, current base proportion, adjusted base proportion, and the resolution fixing the tax rates are all interlocking resolutions that are together are necessary to adopt the FY25 tax rates. Number 8, a transparency resolution. Number 9, 4 pre-considered resolutions that set the interest rate for late payments, as we just discussed. And number 10, Intro 962. The other documents in the package which do not require a separate vote are Schedule C and a list of terms and conditions for FY25. As a reminder to my colleagues, Schedule C is a schedule of the expense and contract budgets, and the appropriations for the organization listed in Schedule C are funded by the expense and contract budgets. Council members will have to sign a disclosure form indicating whether or not a conflict exists with any of the groups listed in Schedule C or Reso A, which details the designations of capital funds. A separate disclosure form must be completed by the transparency resolution. If any council member has a potential conflict of interest with any of the organizations included, they have the opportunity to disclose that conflict at the time of their vote. If you've not yet signed those disclosure forms, staff from the GC's office are here and available to guide you through the process, so please contact one of them before you vote. As a further reminder, please disclose any conflicts you may have with any of the proposed subcontractors that are used by any of the organizations sponsored. Those disclosures must be made before the subcontractors can be approved. Those are all of our items today. I'll now turn it over to the indelible Billy Martin, Committee Clerk, to call the roll.
Good afternoon, everyone. William Martin, Committee Clerk, roll call vote, Committee on Finance. All items are coupled. Chair Brennan.
I vote aye.
Ayala.
I am disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that AHRC is funded in the budget that we are adopting, and my partner is associated with that organization. With that, I vote aye.
Moya.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Powers.
I am voting aye and disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that Mount Sinai Hospital is funded in the budget we are adopting, and my mother is associated with that entity.
Lewis.
I'm disclosing on the record that CUNY is funded in the budget and that we are adopting. I have a sibling associated with this entity. MTA is funded in the budget, and I have a sibling associated with this entity, and I vote aye.
Brooks Powers.
I am disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that the Queens Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is funded in the budget we are adopting, and I am associated with that organization. And that the YMCA is funded in the budget we are adopting, and I am associated with that entity. And that the Edge School of the Arts is funded in the budget we are adopting, and my child is associated with that organization. And that the New York City Department of Education is funded in the budget we are adopting, and my child is associated with that organization. With that, I vote aye.
Brewer.
I vote aye, and I'm disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that CUNY, Hunter in particular, I am associated with that entity. Thank you.
Farias.
I'm disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that NYU Langone is funded in the budget we are adopting, and my parent is associated with that entity, and that the New York City Department of Education is funded in the budget we are adopting, and my sibling is associated with that entity, and with that, I vote aye on all.
Hanks.
I am a no on 482, Rezos 482, 83, Rezos 485, 486, 487, and 48, and aye on all the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. One moment. Hudson.
I'm disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that the Museum of the City of New York is funded in the budget we are adopting, and my spouse is associated with that entity, and that Make the Road New York is funded in the budget we're adopting, and my tenant is associated with that entity, And I just want to thank all of the staff that made this happen, and I'm aye.
Thank you. Osei.
I vote aye.
Sanchez.
I'm disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that the City University of New York is funded in the budget we are adopting, and my sibling is associated with that entity. Congratulations to everyone who worked so hard on this budget, and with that, I vote aye.
Stevens.
I would like to disclose on the record for the proceedings that the City University of New York is funded in this budget that we're about to adopt, and my daughter is associated with that entity. Columbia Presbyterian Hospital is funded in the budget, and we are about to adopt, and my child is also associated with that entity. Thank you. Aye on all.
Williams.
I am disclosing for the record of the council proceedings that the City University of New York is funded in the budget we are adopting, and I am associated with that entity, and the Queens Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is funded in the budget we are adopting, and I am associated with that organization. With that, I vote aye.
Juan.
I am disclosing on the record that of the council proceedings that the YMCA is funded in the budget we are adopting, and I am associated with that entity. I vote aye.
Salam.
I'm disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that the YMCA is funded in the budget we are adopting, and I and my family and my immediate family are associated with that entity, and on all others I vote aye.
Carr.
I'm disclosing on the record of the council proceedings that the Italian Club of Staten Island, the Garibaldi Meucci Museum, and the Jewish Community Center of Staten Island are being funded in the budget we are adopting, and I am a member of these organizations. And I will be voting no on preconsidered resolutions 482, 483, and resolutions 485, 486, 487, and 488, and aye on the rest.
Thank you. Following vote, all items have been adopted with votes of 17 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, with the exceptions of the following items. Resolutions 482, 483, 485, 486, and 487 are adopted with 15 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative, and 1 abstention, and Resolution 488 is adopted with 16 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and no abstentions. That's a full committee.
Okay, with that, this meeting is adjourned.